Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hello, listeners. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Karen McNenny, your good divorce coach. And today I am really excited. We're bringing in a little bit of the California girl, although East Coast by roots, Tess Connolly, licensed clinical social worker, parent and family coach for parents of tweens and teens. And she is also a psychotherapist for tweens and teens. She has a podcast called The Parenting Reset Show, which is all about parenting in the middle school and high school years. I encourage you to check it out. And she lives in Northern California now. She is a single mom to a 15-year-old son and her dog named Red. Happy to be chatting with you today, Tess. I realize that you and I have a couple things in common. One, we're both living on the western part of the United States in this beautiful part of the country, but we're also, you the oldest of 5 children, me the youngest of 5 children, and we are both single parent households and have come through divorce. I'm now 13 years post-divorce, and I believe you're about a decade. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. 10 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I really want to begin because I think it's so encouraging for the community that is listening to our program to really hear surprising stories about divorce, positive stories about divorce. And I always say a good divorce does not mean it was an easy divorce. This is a hard road to navigate and to recover from. Would you give us just a couple highlights about what you were facing as you were considering your own divorce and kind of the immediate arrangements that came in the wake of it? And then we'll talk a little bit about what's happening today.
Okay.
But take us back in time first.
Okay. So I actually, when I was thinking about that, so I officially got divorced in 2015, right? And I realized it's late 2024. So it's just about 10 years. So it's getting there. What was going on prior to my divorce, probably like a lot of people that are contemplating divorce, is there is a lot of thinking about it. There's obviously things that have been going on for a while. And I don't mean months. I've noticed it usually for most, it's years of this on and off, things not going well, trying, right? Couples therapy. We went to couples therapist after the best ones we could find in San Francisco at the time that we were working with. Wonderful older woman, still like even trying what you can, it's still, things were not working and things were getting harder. And and during that process, I was also in my own therapy, which I think also does help to have that support of someone else right beside you alongside doing maybe the couples work. So those were years in and out of having also a very young child. I'd say that kind of the bumpy road started really as soon as my son was born in 2009. So he was born in March of 2009. And I mean, the first several years were really rough and wow. Rough in part, and I'm okay with talking about this because I've talked about it before on my own podcast, is we had my son's father had some, at that time, doesn't anymore, thank goodness, but some significant mental health and substance use problems that were going on. And those really exacerbated everything happening, right? You've got a new child. We're living in a very high income, kind of high, rent and home ownership place. So that's affecting our mortgage. Things were going on and we have a child and there's all this stuff happening. We're also both working, we're working parents. I took a little time off after he was born, but those typical stressors you have when you first have a child, and then they just got exacerbated by some substance use stuff that was happening. So we're trying to manage that by going to different professionals to get some support and get some help. It was still really rough. And so there was a lot of contemplation years. And I knew at some point, I want to say when my son was about 3, maybe 3.5, that this wasn't going to work. And I came to that decision over, again, years of working with my own therapist and honestly talking with friends and family and lots of trials of different things. So I get to that point And I know that I need to make kind of a plan. So I'm thinking ahead. I've also got to get a child who at that time we're pushing 5 years old and get him out of San Francisco. We could no longer afford the private school system there, which was outrageous just to have a kid in preschool. But even the public schools that we were kind of tagged to, you get an allotment, kind of like how it goes, and you get your choices. But we got a school that we did not really like, and it wasn't in a great spot for us. We didn't want that. It was also the expense of living there. It was like the very beginning of the .com kind of boom was happening. So real estate was going off the hook in Dolores Park. That's the area that we lived in San Francisco. So we decided we're going to move out. So my plan at that time, I'm thinking now, this is not going to work. How do I really now prepare in every way to get my child and get myself and our family out to Marin County, just north of San Francisco, get him into a kindergarten and get settled, and then kind of do the work of pulling apart, which is what I knew was coming. And so that's what essentially what did happen.
As I hear you talk, Tess, I think it is such a common story that, there is always this somewhat judgment of people who are getting divorced, like, just it's a snap decision. They're taking the easy way out. Oh, they didn't work hard enough at their marriage. I call BS on that. I think there are so many of us just like you who we are fighting for our marriage. We're in and out of individual and couples counseling. We're what I refer to as packing the psychic parachute. Like there's some things I need to get in order financially, maybe real estate, maybe school. Sometimes it's actually we're not in a safe marriage, whether that's emotionally or physically, and we need to make sure that there's safety, right? Like creating a soft landing. And there's usually one person in the couple who is packing that parachute so that when we all have to jump out of this plane called our intact family into a 2-household family, there is a soft landing. So listeners, there's no shame in that. And hold the integrity that, yes, many of us are fighting for our marriage. So you did it. You created the soft landing. It became clear. You got the family moved.
Yeah.
And then.
Okay. I love that metaphor, by the way, Karen, of the parachute, because that's exactly, it's at one point in my own individual therapy, that's exactly what I would sit down and start talking about. What's the plan? Because once I kind of knew, and there's a huge, and you're completely right, there is a lot of grieving in those years prior. I'm just going to give this quick example. I'm working at this point, my kid's like maybe 3.5, maybe 4. I know that we're going this way. I'm pulling into the underneath, it's really dark, underneath this garage of a very old home in San Francisco. We're at the top floor, but it's a dark spot. I would pull in and I would just cry. It was just like months and months on and off, probably even more of doing that prior to leaving and getting out. But I really like that metaphor of the parachute, because that's exactly what I was doing. You do plan, and there's lots. So we get to Marin County, and I am talking with his sister. So I'm pulling in a family member, in part because of what was going on with substance use and mental health stuff. I really need an ally. And fortunately, my ex-husband has a sister who lives nearby. She's part of this, and we're working together to kind of figure out the best ways to have an intervention, essentially. So we do that. We plan. We get his best friend. We get everyone. So we do an intervention together. And it was at that point of the intervention, he goes and gets some treatment for drinking at that time. I knew that he wasn't coming back into the home. He did not entirely know that. So it was after that treatment, it wasn't long. I want to say it was less than a month, which is, I know from being in this field that's not a lot of treatment. So then we have the ultimate conversation. And I'm happy to describe that about how that went and what happened, if that's okay.
I think that would be beneficial. There is someone listening right now who is standing in the river. You've already come through. Yeah. So yes, please share that personal story.
So he gets done with doing a little bit of treatment. I knew, because I'm in this field, this is not even ballpark close of what he needs to do. But I also knew we were going to separate this time. He wasn't going to come back. And it was really right before he left. We had been in the new home. My son's in the school, and we had that intervention. But he's now I mean, he's downstairs under, like, in the kind of garage basement area of the home that we had rented, and doing kind of, we're separated right now at this point, like bedroom wise. He's down there. There had been a lot kind of going on. And so when he came back from treatment, I knew, and knowing who he is again, and paying attention to all of the different parameters around his own mental health, and how things can get going and rage can get going, I literally said, we need to have a conversation about what's going to happen now. And we did this in our living room, like during the middle of the day. My son's at kindergarten at this point down the street. And I literally physically sat down on the floor. And the reason I sat on the floor, and he was like, what are you doing? Because it wasn't. And I said,
Not your usual thing.
No, I said, I need to have a talk with you. And I need to be very clear that we've really got to have a conversation. Like, I didn't want to get into the back and forth that somehow had gone on before, the easy, quick, we'll start to get into an argument. I needed to disarm him, and really doing something nonverbal, like sitting on the floor, is like, whoa, what are you doing? Because I also knew he's not going to feel threatened by me sitting on the floor. I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor, and I just said, I need to have a conversation. So he's across the room. I think he sat on the sofa, or he might've been initially standing, but then eventually sat on the sofa. But I said, we can't, we're no longer going to do this. And, well, what do you mean? I said, you cannot come back into this home. I want a divorce. I mean, I'm summing this up. It didn't happen exactly like this, but
sure,
I want a divorce, and we're going to need to separate things now. So there was, like, of course, back and forth, but that's essentially how I had that conversation. And I mean, I still remember exactly where I was sitting, what was going on, and he heard it. And that was kind of the start, the actual start of the end of then dismantling and having separate homes.
Right. This whole renovation process that happens for the family.
Yeah.
And reminding our listeners that these early conversations, they're indelible moments.
Yeah.
For everybody involved. So being really thoughtful, being intentional. I'm surprised with so many of my clients who just sort of like just spurt it out, or sit the kids down, or, oh, we're driving, now is the time, I'm thinking about it. Like, no, you need to think about a script. You might have to have a dry run.
Yeah.
You might need to bounce it around with someone else. And that is not only in how you speak to your spouse, but then of course your child.
Yeah.
Your child, kindergarten, that was about the age of our kids. They were 5 and 7. Do you remember any of the details of how the conversation happened with your son?
Yeah. So my ex and I had more conversations after that were reasonable, where we could talk about it.
Yeah.
And then I think it was actually, honestly, I think it was probably weeks later, at least weeks later, maybe even a month later. But yeah, our child is barely, at this point, 6 years old, barely 6, or might've been right around 6 years old. So we talked about this ahead. I talked about this, and I was we were very intentional around sitting him down. I remember that conversation with him. He's sitting in between us, and he is also just like adored by both of us so much. He's our only one. And he's also a very sensitive kid. So I started the conversation, had the conversation, but I do remember, my gosh, that conversation of he was in between us, sitting on the sofa that day in our old home, being probably the harder conversation. Yes. I felt like then asking for a divorce conversation, because I felt like, oh my, all that stuff that was there. And this is, of course, 9.5 years, but he's going to be scarred. It's going to be horrible. We're setting him up like it's going to be a capital T trauma, which I know what that, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. This is all going on. But we did say it appropriately. Mom and Dad, we answered some questions. He didn't have a lot of questions because, again, at that age, they're not really clued in. They're not 14 going, what do you mean? What's happening? And ask details. Well, where am I going to?
It's abstract.
Yeah.
Which is why we have to be really, and this is part of your expertise as a parent educator, that it is age appropriate.
Yes.
And that means if you have a 16-year-old and a 6-year-old in your home, that's probably 2 different conversations, because they're going to have different questions. They're going to absorb it differently.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful that you and the father of your child could do this together. I always say how we begin is often how we end.
Yeah.
And from the beginning, you're telling your son, your parent team isn't changing.
Yeah.
Like we're your team.
Right.
And we love you. And we're going through this together. We're not leaving anyone behind. And how reassuring that can be for the child.
Yeah. And Karen, that's exactly what we did. We really made a point. Both of us were very committed to making sure that this went well for him. I think maybe even more commitment on having it go well for our child versus ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Like we were both like, we can't. And I educated him about the number, which I use in my practice constantly, but the number one way kids are not scarred coming out of divorce is that the parents are cooperative. Like you don't have to hang out with your ex, but you need to be cooperative and getting along, and at least the appearance of getting along and not throwing the other one under the bus. And that piece I kept throwing in there, like, this is important how we do this. So we did that. It did go well. He didn't ask a lot then. The questions came later, in the next year or so.
And they're going to change again as the child changes. So I'd like to fast forward now that we have a little context of what brought you into the divorce, because your family divorce journey has had a really interesting twist. And your son is now how old?
15 and a half.
Okay. And things have changed around your house.
Yeah.
Would you please unpack how things have changed for your household and your family and your relationship with your co-parent?
Okay. I will sum up, 8.5 years really fast. So here, it was the very beginning, even though we had that lovely conversation with him. After that, it felt like World War III started.
Oh,
and it's in part because of rage and there was, it's hard to unpack everything here, but there was a lot, again, mental health stuff that was still there for my ex, that was still getting treated. But when you put a serious, significant crisis, which a divorce can be, into the mix of someone already struggling, like your executive functioning, this is the prefrontal cortex, does not think well. So now you're coming from the back brain, which is essentially you're coming from that limbic place of, these are things that are coming up from him, from his past, from his own history, dynamics with his own mother. Like, so a lot of this, I know this now. I even knew it then, even though it was hard to live through. I got a lot of rage towards me, and I had to stay steady through that. So there were years, multiple years, and it got the first two probably pretty tough. And then it went down a little bit, and then it would just be bits and pieces every few months, something.
Little flare. And I feel the same way. Like, it's really intense, literally for most of us, 1 to 3 years, like framing the expectation. You're going through divorce, then you're recovering from divorce, and then you're just a divorced person. And there are 3 different stages, and all of them tend to take a little longer than we want or that we expect. And I appreciate this, this context from you, that it was really hard there. We were across enemy lines. We were challenged through our divorce, which is what makes today all the more remarkable.
Yeah. So I will tell you, it was very, very difficult. I had other friends even comment, and my attorney at that time, who I was with, getting divorced, say, this is one of the worst situations I've ever seen. And I helped kind of guide her in different ways, just particularly around the mental health components of that. We had police calls, unfortunately. I made just all kinds of shenanigans and stuff.
Right. The worst things you can imagine. They were happening.
Pretty much, right? It was. So really tough the first several years. Then it got a little bit better, but there's still struggles here and there and flare-ups and all of that. So we come to, I want to say the last couple years, about the last 2 years, things have settled down significantly in that he has his own home. I've had my own home for a long time. I am the primary parent, because in part, I think because of the issues that I've talked about with the mental health issues and just kind of just who he is. I had the majority of the custody, in terms of, even though on paper it was kind of working up to 50-50 is the way the legal piece showed, but it never quite got there. And that was actually fine. After years, he was fine, and that was okay. It worked well for our son. And I think he knew that, I knew that, and let's just let it be. He lived nearby. So it wasn't like he was and he never saw his child. No, he would see him several times a week and definitely have time on the weekend. But just the last couple of years, things have gotten better. Just maybe one or two things a year might come up, something that was like very difficult. But earlier this year, he decided finally, and we live in this place, I think I've mentioned, but Northern California, it's really expensive to live here. And especially as single parents, owning a home here is just, it's not an option unless you really have a two-parent household and you've got really good income and all of that. You just can't. It's really outrageously expensive. So he decides, I'm going to leave my apartment. It's too much. I'm just putting off too much. And he had not been working fully the entire time we've been separated. So he leaves. And as he's looking at things, he's like, right now, and he had a job, but he had lost it. So he's like, I'm really struggling. I need some help. And the interesting thing is that this is not ideal. I hear about this kind of first from he's 15, right? He's old enough. He knows what's going on. And we can talk about that later. But I did have conversations with my son about where dad's at and what it's looking like and describing, what's gone on. We did that with him many years later. But so he knows dad's situation. He's like, I think dad needs some help. Dad's like not doing well. Made a couple comments like that.
Yeah.
That also cues me as the other parent, like, oh, then I know my kid's worrying about him, which I don't want him doing or taking care of dad, even at 15 years old.
Right.
So I had a talk with him and he's like, yeah, I really need a place to kind of, to crash sort of, for a few months to get back on my feet. Now, this was June of this year of 2024. We're in November of 2024 and he's still with us. So he came to move in. He moved in with us in June and initially started staying, like I've got like a patio with a sofa, comfy sofa and everything right outside. And fortunately where we live, believe it or not, it doesn't rain. It does not rain from probably May till actually late October. It really doesn't. So you can sleep outside and the weather here is it's mild. It gets cool at night, not too cold, and it gets warm in the day and usually not too hot, except in August. So he moved in and started living with us. And yeah, I'm going to stop there.
Well, yes. And this is, such a wild twist. And I'm sure there's someone out there listening, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But again, folks, there was struggle. There was a change. And I always say time is this elixir of healing that cannot be replaced by anything else.
Yep.
And if there's something in us that can almost hit the gas pedal to kind of get there sooner, and like you said, we don't have to be friends. We need to be friendly. We need to be cooperative.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what was the nature of the conversation that you and your son's father had about, if you move in, here are some boundaries, here's some guidelines. This is what it's going to look like. Because it's one thing to say, yes, I want to help the father of my child. That's in the best interest of all of us. And there's another of saying, I'm willing to, if you will, take you back into my home under my roof.
Yeah.
And how are we going to negotiate that?
Yeah. We did have a conversation about that. And, I think he just was like, initially, it's just for a short time, maybe a month or two. I kind of got the sense this could turn into something longer. I know him well enough. And I also know the economy. I know what it takes to then go get another rental unit. Rental units here, again, as I said, they're not going to be cheap. So that's going to require some time. So we did have that conversation. We just sat here, right here in my home, right behind me. And we talked about, I said, look, let's just make an agreement. What do you project it'll be realistically? And he goes, okay, definitely just a few months. So September, right? He'd be moving out in the month of September. I just need a few months. Here's the plan. Here's where my storage stuff is. Here's what I'd like. I mean, I will keep a what he was calling a low footprint in the house, meaning he's got a health club membership right nearby where he can shower. He works out anyway, and he would go to the library during the days looking for a place. So he wasn't here. So that was the other thing. I work at home, so I said you can't be in the home because, quite honestly, I mean, I've got a variety of different things I'm doing, but it's too small to have some. I don't have an office. I use it's like part of my living room. So we made those clear. Like we set the boundaries around where he's going to be during the day. And kind of what it's going to look like. And he doesn't even use the bathroom that often. So that was that was something we talked about. And then I said, one of my most important pieces I really want to pay attention to, I also had this conversation with my son, is I don't want this to affect my relationship with my son. And what I was worried about is as we're together and he gets stressed, I already know this, and we both get stressed at different times.
Sure.
And we could start doing that fighting that might have happened a decade ago because you're in the same place. And that's what number one, I was worried about that. Two, I did not want it affecting my relationship with my son. So I said, I do not want it to end with some big blow up and you're upset or I'm upset. And then I'm like, you got to get out of here. That would just be awful for my son.
Like taking a wound that's scarred over and just opening it again, the oozing, pussing, bleeding, infected, like, we're going to all be re-traumatized if we don't do this well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I heard from many friends and family, like, I mean, girlfriends that know the ins and outs that were helping me at times, like literally, can you come help me do this and grab my son because there's something going on? I mean, this was years ago, but they were like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You're having your ex-husband come live with you? And I'm like, just temporarily, like he needs some help. We've talked about it. It's, my son, I actually asked my son also prior to this, if he was okay with it. He's now of age. He's not 6, right? How do you feel about it? How do you feel like dad being in the space? And he goes, well, I don't want him to sleep on, sleeping in my room. We only have 2 bedrooms. So sleeping in my room, I want my space. He's at that time. He likes his video game and his bed and he plays golf up there and he doesn't. So I was like, fine, that's great. So, made that clear. And I let him know, most importantly, like I said, I want to be able to help dad at this time. And I didn't necessarily say this to him, but I want him to see that family members, no matter what's gone on, and he knows that there's been horrendous times, he knows, that we can come back around and support each other and help each other in times of need. And I also thought to my mind, okay, I didn't want to do it, but I also didn't want my son to worry about him. And I thought, if I look back on this, right, he's 20 years old. And I say to myself, my ex, I let the ex-husband came live with us for 6 months and he got back on his feet. To me, that is modeling compassion, kindness, empathy. And honestly, he's seeing his dad struggle a little bit, but he's also seeing his dad work through it right now. We are right in it right now, getting on his feet. He's got a full-time job. He's getting to that place where he can go and look for a place to live. So I would expect that that's going to happen in the next couple months. So that's what I really wanted. I'm thinking already ahead, like what's it going to look like for my 15-year-old son and how's he going to feel about this? So we did have that conversation. He agreed with everything. He's like, I got to tell you, he was so appreciative of the fact that we were doing this. He literally helped out with everything around the house. He takes care of the dog. He cleans up the dishes. He's doing the laundry. I'm like, can you leave something for our son to do? He has chores. I want him to take out the trash. No, don't worry about it. I got it. And then he'll tell us. And I'm like, he's got to do something. He's got to have some kind of chore. So, my son is like loving it. Yeah, dad's doing all the chores. I'm like, I know he is.
You got a house husband.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an extraordinary story and wrinkle in time for your family. And the other thing I really want to highlight, Tess, is this idea, what is the story our children will say?
Yes.
What is the story they'll tell and they'll remember? And I remind my clients, like, in the same way that you designed your marriage, you can design your divorce.
Yep.
And it is a story you're writing. And the story doesn't end at the day of divorce, right? The marriage ends, not the relationship.
No.
If you share kids, it is a forever relationship through graduations to grandbabies. And we have way more agency.
Yeah.
over ourselves and that story that we're writing than I think a lot of us really embrace or
Hmm.
realize. And
Yeah.
I think you are an inspiration. And certainly your
Thank you.
expertise and your background is one of the things that has elevated what I would say your consciousness and
Hmm.
your intention in order to do this successfully. I kind of want to say, do not try this at home without an expert. But you're not the first guest I've had on the show, and you're not the first person that I've come across in my life who has embraced that former relationship
Yeah.
in a way that would seem surprising or impossible. But that's really just divorce propaganda people telling you that you're supposed to be enemies forever. And I
Yeah.
say, no,
No.
change the narrative.
Absolutely, Karen. And I completely agree with you. I want to add to this. Right after he had been here for maybe 2 months, he
Mm.
said he stood in the kitchen. I mean, he had been, I told you, everything's been going, it actually has been going pretty well. We had a recent argument and then we talked about it the following day, but that was kind of the first one in 4.5 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Impressive.
will say he's doing what he needs to do. He's out of the house every day. Like I could see that bumping up against him if he was in my
Yeah.
space of work. So a couple of times that's happened, but it's worked itself out pretty quickly. But about 2.5 months in, we're standing in the kitchen one morning. My son's off to school already, but I'm making tea. He's getting something. He's about to leave for the day and head out. But he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that you and Casey, that's my son's name, are really because also there's been some breaks with his sister right now." And he said, "You two are really my only family. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you letting me stay here, get back on my feet. I really, really appreciate it." And he's like, and then he came towards me. He's like, "Is it okay if I give you a hug?" And I'm like, "Yes, that's fine." But
Right.
I was
That's
really,
a new boundary.
yeah, but that was, I mean, I got to tell you, even in that moment, thinking that, I was like, so taken aback from like almost a decade ago of at times feeling like if this person didn't exist, I think I'd handle it. It'd be hard, but you know what I mean? You go from extreme of like not wanting this person around ever anymore
Right.
to this standing in my kitchen saying, we're in this,
being grateful with
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
I want to cross over a bit from your
Mm.
personal story into your, area of expertise. And
Mhm.
and you have worked with families struggling in crisis.
Yep.
You've worked as an outpatient therapist with abused children,
Yep.
leading court-ordered parenting groups, managing treatment for suicidal children and teens, and really done a lot of what we call the work, the capital W personal work.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up our episode today, I want to drill down in your area of expertise, which is these tweens and teen.
Yeah.
And I think a mythology for divorced families is that either, we'll stay for the kids until they graduate from high school, and then, we can wash our hands of each other and we're done. That's actually a cliff that I think is quite dangerous for a family who has no parameters about how we coexist.
Yeah.
I also think that when we no longer have the guardrails of a parenting plan, which expires, if you will, at 18, that from 18 to 25, we're like, well, we got them to their adulthood and now we're done.
I know.
So first, would you just remind us what's happening between 18 and 25 years old and that last stage of adolescence and why it matters? And then we'll talk a little bit about how to support that as a family of divorce.
Okay. So what's happening between 18 and 25? And as I told you right before the show, Karen, I have a 15-and-a-half-year-old who's a sophomore in high school. And I am realizing this more and more every day. And then alongside, I've got 4 siblings who all I have nieces and nephews, 7 or 8 of them. There's so many of them. They are all between like 19 and 26 or 27. And so I'm watching it firsthand and then also from friends as well. And then what I know from my own work. The brain has not, we know this, that I didn't know this when I was growing up. We didn't know this
We don't know these things
years ago. Now we know there's been so much brain research and so many studies and all of that. We know now the brain is still growing, exponentially growing between 18 and like 25. Even some things more recently in the last year or so that I've read, it's still growing through that late 20s up until almost 30. So what does that mean? That means then you have still a young adult at whatever age, 18, 19, 20, who is still trying to obviously find their way, but there's a lot going on in the brain. And then think about it, just so in so many different ways, cognitively, socially, with relationships, going out into the world, a lot of them without parents right nearby and right in their home. Some are, but there's so much going on at this time for them. And their brain is not done developing. So there's a lot that's still happening. And so this is definitely a time where I'm starting to think about it even more and more. You're not done at 18. No. And it doesn't mean like you're, even if you want them to be done at 18, there's a progression. They're a legal adult according in this society, right? They're illegal. That's all it is. That is all it is. And then they can vote, and there's some other things they can do. And at 21 in certain places, like they can drink, right? These were just made up, but the brain is not done. It doesn't mean we need to keep doing all the things we're doing for them at 14 and 15. They're now, as they move along, they're expected, and they can start doing more from themselves. But there's so much happening in that time. I think it's one of probably the more, and I know this for myself personally too. I remember those times. It's a really challenging time. I almost think it's even harder to some degree than the times that they're in the home. And yes, middle school is rough. That's the parent population I'm working with a lot. Middle school and high school, especially early high school. There's also a lot going on there. But then you get to this young adult time, and the brain's still going, but then now you're expected to, because you're an adult, to be on your own and somehow be able to do everything, go to college, have great relationships. And all of this time is a big, huge learning curve.
Yes.
And our parenting changes.
I kind of think of it like a rubber band.
Yeah.
And the kids are pulling away. I've got it. Don't micromanage me. I can handle it myself. Snap. Yes. Wait, I need $20 and will you pay my car insurance? And I can't find my favorite shoes. Mom, Dad, yes. Right?
Yes.
And so in terms of talking to our divorced population, right? You've really made the case, Tess, that there not only is there a lot happening neurologically, developmentally, and this is formally the last stage of adolescence. It doesn't end at 18. It's just a new stage.
Yeah.
But socially and emotionally, in that journey of independence.
Yeah.
And kids still trying to navigate, like, when I go off to college, where's my stuff? Do I still have a bedroom? Do one of my parents leave the home that I've been living in?
Right.
What happens with Christmas, especially for those of you who have waited, or it just happens that your divorce aligns with when your kids are launching to college.
Yeah.
You won't have the guardrails of the court giving you a parenting plan, but you are still very much co-parents. I call it the condom, cars, and college period. Right? Yes. All of it. I'm talking to my husband.
Yep.
It's FAFSA and it's college tuition and what are the plans, and they have this new independence and they can't quite pay for everything themselves. So how are we still negotiating how we support them when there's no longer the guidelines and the guardrails? So again, developmentally, when you think about the parents that you're regularly coaching and working with, and then you add divorce on top of that, what are some of the key things that we really need to pay attention to as parents, and where we need to, if you will, put in our own guardrails for our children so that they have a successful launch?
Yeah. Okay. One of the main areas that parents really need to pay attention to, and again, I work with parents, particularly of middle school and high school. So that those kind of years.
Well, that is relevant as well. Give it all to us, Tess.
Okay. So during that time, and you've got a divorce, or you're co-parenting, I'm going to say the main thing to pay attention to is your self-care. And I'm not talking about bubble baths and chocolate. I'm talking about real, true self-care. And what does that look like? it looks different for everyone, right? For me, it is going to go do exercise or going on a trail run, sitting this is for me, sitting in a cafe, having my chai tea latte. Those are just downtimes for me that I love. Spending time with really good friends, talking to other people, whatever self-care looks for you. Maybe, and I do know that there's a lot of women that if you have the means to do this, I would love to do it more often. I don't do it actually rarely, but take off for a night when you have children. If you're able to kind of go somewhere for an evening and get a sense of kind of who you are at this time, because there's so much going on, but take care of yourself. And really, I know that this is a cliche we've all heard, but putting on your own oxygen mask first, you have to. If you're taking care of yourself really well in a good way that really sustains you and fills you up, I'd say things like good sleep, exercise, eating relatively healthy, and having good relationships, these basics, then you are going to be a much better parent to your children and a much better co-parent to your ex.
And not only our teenage children, but also our co-parent, they can test our patience.
Absolutely.
It is so challenging. So you're right. If we're not in a position to lean into that,
right,
we got trouble.
Yeah. And it's really figuring out ways that you can you've got to, and this is not like you just do it and you have this great foundation and you're and like doing things like meditation. I think that's really helpful for a lot of parents. It doesn't mean you have to plop your butt on the mat and and chant. What it means is even just being mindful or taking some time for yourself to be able to just take a few breaths, especially when you're interacting with your kids who can, because I know this at these teenage years, they're coming up and there's this new thing and it's happening. And I feel like I'm always getting it from every angle from a teenager. Things are coming in really quick and really, really fast about different things they need or they want, or there's this, and until they're driving. So I'm in this place, but I am the golf driver. I'm driving. Can you take me to the next county to go play this one golf course? So just all this stuff kind of comes at you, or even just simple things about like discussions around homework or screen time. This is a constant battle that parents have. If you have a good sense of being able to like in those moments, let kind of just allow things to just sit and be present with what's happening rather than reactive. So that's how I know that things aren't going well inside for me. If I am highly reactive, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Let me take a moment. So being able to kind of be present and be grounded in what's going on. And you can always say, parents, I don't think say this enough or feel like they can't. You know what? I don't know the answer to that. Well, what do you mean? Can you take me or not? Or can you get this for me? I don't know the answer right now. I need a little time to think about it and I'll get back to you. Parents don't do like, they always think, oh no, I gotta respond. I agree. No, I gotta, even on a consequence, something happens and you just are not sure, like, geez, they went outside, they did this. I don't even know what, we're going to get, well, what's going to happen? You know what? I need to think about that. I'm going to get back to you on the weekend after I've had some time to think about it.
And it might be requests from our child. It might be a consequence, but it also might be they have a hard question for us.
Yes. Yeah.
As time goes on, like, well, what did happen between you and dad?
Right.
What is the divorce? Well, how common can we? And well, who's this person you were dating? Like all the things. And we think that in the moment, we have to just divulge because we're being asked in the moment. I agree. I am so much a fan of the push pause.
Yes. Yeah.
And just say, that's a great question. I'm going to have to think about that. Or I'm going to talk to your other parent about it first.
Yep. Exactly.
Buy yourself a little time. And maybe it's a walk around the block because you are elevated.
Yes.
Like you said, you're not regulating well and you're not standing in your best self to have that conversation with your tween who's challenging you.
Yep. Definitely.
You're de-escalate, move from your limbic system, ladies and gentlemen, back into your executive function. Exercise, breathing, walk time are all ways that we can shift the biology and have a more productive conversation.
Yes. And the only other piece I would put in there during this time for parents and people that are anyone who's co-parenting is to pay attention to also just I do this often, but I think about where what my son's point of view is. And it's not even so much a cognitive thing as I'm kind of getting into what is his vantage point? Where is he at? So this is kind of looking at development. He's looking at the world in a different way at 15 versus when he was 11 or 10. And it's different. And so I continually pay attention. I mean, this is also part of my work. So it's natural, but I get in there and think, okay, kind of what's going on with him, right now? Is there something emotional, or what is he thinking about may be happening? And I really, because all through, whether it's it has to do with school, or it has to do with friends, or it has to do with the extracurricular activities, or whatever they're involved in, or their relationship with the other parent, thinking about from their point of view, what is their experience of what's going on? That's a little bit more nuanced than like just someone's point of view. Do you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
And so that's helped to be able to do that. That requires, I think, again, pausing, being present, and giving yourself some time to kind of think about that. Like you can do that like on a walk, or sometimes I'm driving a lot, it seems. And during the drives, I'm going to kind of get that, okay, that's where it's at. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come at it from that place.
Oh, well, Tess Connolly, I could talk to you for a week and not run out of interesting things. Sadly, we have come to the end of our episode today, reminding you listeners that our expert today, Tess Connolly, licensed clinical social worker, parent and family coach for parents of teens and tweens, also working directly with teens and tweens as a psychotherapist. And you have your own podcast, which I look forward to also being a guest on.
Yes.
And we might have to have you back here on the Good Divorce Show, your show, the Parenting Reset Show. What else do you want our listeners to know about where we can find you and the additional resources you have available?
Okay. You can find me. So my business name is Mindful Kids and Families. So I have this umbrella of Mindful Kids and Families, and you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook under that name. My website is mindfulkidsandfamilies, all one word.com. You can also look, I'm also on TikTok. I am doing videos, and I've done a lot of videos with my son, who has been part of my business world, and he's helped me kind of explain things to parents. So I'm the Parent Reset Coach on TikTok. That's where you can find me.
Oh, that's just great. Thank you so much for hopping into the conversation today and sharing so much wisdom for people who indeed are looking for a good divorce experience, and reminding everybody it's never too late to have a good divorce.
Thank you, Karen.
And listeners, thank you for setting aside this time and investing in your journey for yourself and your kids. And remember, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram @GoodDivorceCoach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific, or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.